Obviously, I had a chance to review the film. Met with our players yesterday, and you can't allow any part of failure to win or losing, however you want to say it, creep into the program. And I think about the TCU game. I saw a lot of guys that were sad, disappointed, upset, yes, but more of that first time in the stadium. Got a chance to do a lot of positive things and just an offense, defense, special teams, left some things out there. And then I feel the resentment of Sunday, and Sunday was more of just anger. Guys were after they watched film, pissed about not being able to capitalize. Did so many good things, did a lot of positive things on all three phases of the game, and then did some things very, very well. And then when it really mattered, or maybe he did it right 5 times and 6th time it wasn't great. I think as coaches we got to take a personal inventory and have done that. But I try to accentuate some of the positives. I look at kickoff coverage. Obviously, we gave up the huge one at the end, but I believe the first 4 or 5 times, tackles inside the 15, tackles inside the 20, the plan was really good. And then that last one, we have a couple guys didn't do the exact same thing that we did earlier. Offensively, huge emphasis on second half production, red zone in particular, scoring in the 4th quarter, and did that, and yet weren't able to win the game defensively. Talked in huge emphasis on keeping the ball in front of us, not allowing big plays, and there were, I believe, 4 plays over 25 yards, and those ended up being key point in the ball game. Did so many other positive things. It just made a point to our guys how hard it is and difficult it is to win in the SEC, but something they're very close to being able to say they can do. I know it's very frustrating, but I did encourage them to hold the rope and keep playing. And I think you're going to get an angry group preparing all week, get a chance to put in another good week of preparation, have a home game here, and see what we can do. Health-wise, unfortunately, Jay Red did obviously damage his Achilles, and is actually going over surgery sometime today. Visited with him and his mom a little bit earlier, just laid in front of them. Several options that exist. Obviously, he's a 4th-year player that has a redshirt year available. I think we'll, continue to make decisions as they come. No need to make any hurried ones now. I'll give him all the information possible. Try to gather a couple different things for him first, like in unique case scenarios. I've been a part of a couple of them that. Where I've had a fullback in the past. It was a 4th-year senior who never redshirted, broke his leg in an inside drill, sat out that year, came back, was drafted, played in the league 5-6 years. I was at the University of Wisconsin where there's a guy by the name of Lee Evans who tore his knee and tore his ACL in a spring game, missed the next year, came back, was a first-round draft pick a year later. So I'm going to try to give him a lot of different case scenarios that he can bounce off of and absorb. We also have the ability at the end of the year to submit a grade. Even though he only played in 2 games, he can submit a grade at the end of the year and get an evaluation from the NFL, what they say he might be rated as. In addition to that, explore the options of the supplemental draft, which a lot of times that actually has to do with negative situations, ineligibility, and things like that, which, of course, will be no part of what he is. But I want to make sure that because if it's a 6-month recovery, he really wouldn't have an opportunity to get a lot of workout in and evaluations for the NFL before next year's draft. So a lot of different information to process, and we'll work together on that. He had a really good attitude, disappointed, but also understand that Jay Red's been through quite a few of these similar situations where he's had an injury and battled back very, very well. So thoughts and prayers will be with him as we go forward. K. Rich is cleared and should be ready to rock and roll on Tuesday. He played a very, very limited role this past weekend. We got him in there, and he really practiced a little bit on Wednesday. Didn't practice Thursday. We knew he was going to be close, and I think Paul came up to me in pregame warm-ups and said he's good but not great. He isn't where we need to be. So we went with the alternate plan, which obviously put Josh Liddell in at the nickel spot or the cash spot, and brought Jerry Coley in with a lot more significant role. And Dre actually played very, very well, but to get K. Rich back in the lineup just gives us a lot more depth. Not only to show the chain reaction, K. Rich is a very valuable part of our special teams, all 4 phases. And as the game wore on, that kickoff coverage unit replaced 4 or 5 starters off of the kicks that had been first done. And when you start getting into your second string depth, offense, defense is one thing, but your second string depth with kickoff and in your 4 main special teams phases is very, very difficult. So positive, we had some guys step up, obviously with the departure of Jared. Jonathan Nance stepped up big. Now for the season, I kind of use this as a case in point. You know, last year during the spring, we lost our #1 running back, right? Our SEC leading rusher is lost for the season. Devwah Whaley, we acquire David Williams and Chase Hayden come in, and are very, very, very prominent playmakers, stepped into that role. And unfortunately lost a great player in Raleigh, but we're able to have 3 guys step in. All right, so now we lose at the beginning of the year, first game, we lose obviously Ryan Pulley, one of our best players, one of our best corners. Now you had Andre Tolliver take his game to another level. Both safeties are playing extremely well, and now you have Cameron Crowe come in, and even though he wasn't perfect on Saturday, he was out there battling and competing. They tried to test him several times, and he responded very, very well. So the response has been positive there. So nothing would tell me that anything different is good. Now we lost our #1 wide receiver in Jay Red. Jonathan Nance responded. Jordan Jones responded. I expect Deion Stewart to be able to respond. Some new guys might be the development of Davion Warren, who looked good on the kickoff return. Get him in there, and Gary Cross. Also the addition of maybe possibility of Brandon Martin. So we've had a couple setbacks, but guys have responded very, very well, and hopefully we'll do that as we move forward. So should be good as we go. And I'll open up for questions.
What was Kevin's injury?
Kevin just kind of rolled his ankle. It was a high ankle sprain. So, you know, anytime you get a little bit further up into that high ankle sprain, it's a little bit slower to recover. He was in there for medication and treatments all day long. Grant Morgan, another case in point. Grant had been playing a lot more and had been a starter on all 4 of our special teams. We lost him in Tuesday's practice. Got rolled up from behind, which took him out of our special teams depth, and I believe he only got about 5 or 6 plays from the line of scrimmage, and just wasn't quite at 100%, so that really affected us depth-wise as well.
So is Jared's a ruptured Achilles?
I don't want to, just because there's some dialogue on the back end, I'd hate to say they're going in for surgery today, and we'll have a lot better, clearer picture as the details goes forward.
During camp, Michael Smith said that he thought this was the most talented receiving corps, not experienced yet.
Yeah.
So do you feel like Martin is going to be able to come in and contribute this week, and can Petway get himself back?
Well, I think I appreciate what you're saying about the group. I do think this group has a lot to come forward. Again, Jonathan Nance, through the first 2 games, had shown some promise, but nothing like he did those last 2 catches. And I mean, the second one was on the flip side of a targeting call that got reversed. I mean, to respond the way he did, I thought was really, really big. Jordan Jones had a couple big plays in the game. Deion Stewart, we know we've targeted him a couple times and has had some flashes. I think it's important. Those 3 guys will be, I would say, our top 3, and then the next 3 are really up for grabs. I know Brandon Martin. I know we talk about him, and but he hasn't quite done it yet. You know, consistently, he's had some injuries with a hamstring. But I'm excited to get him back in the lineup. I do get excited. I think Gary Cross showed some flashes. He was our off returner on kickoff return. He's had the best 2 weeks of practice he's had since he's been here. So really excited about him. Davion Warren, Gerard Barnes, a couple of those guys continue to come forward, and we'll see where it plays out.
With Jordan Jones, can you see an expanded role for him, especially after the jet sweep?
Yeah, I do. You know, Nate, he has tremendous speed. He's a very long player. Actually, he's got very, very good hands on the deep ball throws as well. So it's one thing to have Jonathan, but now you can have 2 guys line up and have vertical threat is a good deal. The jet sweep thing, not only him, but I thought, you know, it didn't get blocked as clean, but it was another guy I forget is TJ Hammonds. TJ had his best week of practice, was involved in the game plan really, really good, and I think he's a guy that could take a big jump at the wide receiver position as well.
Bret, Ramirez played quite a bit of first-team reps, especially in overtime. He's on the depth chart.
Paul Ramirez? Yeah, when I put the offensive depth chart out there, Paul Ramirez really can play both left and right tackle. Johnny Gibson can play really all 4 offensive line positions other than, you know, just the center position. The way that they moved some guys around. They were bringing some pressure at the right guard position. That's why we put John in there, get a little bigger body. Ty was obviously playing his first SEC game and did some really good things, especially in the run game. But pass game, we thought we wanted to get a bigger body in there. That's why we moved Johnny into right guard and brought Paul Ramirez over to right tackle. But there was a planned rotation that we wanted to get Colton Jackson out, so we didn't have to play the entire game, and get Paul Ramirez in there. Paul had 2 good weeks of practice. I'll give credit to our O-line coach, Kurt. Didn't flinch. You know, Paul got in there, had the 2 penalties pretty quickly, and stayed with him, and actually played pretty well at the end. So, I think that O-line, we were planning on playing a couple of these true freshmen. The good news today, Dalton Wagner is back. There is a good chance we could mix him in there. He had by far the best spring and fall of the incoming freshmen besides Ty. So Dalton Wagner could be back in the mix. I continue to push and try to get Brian Wallace and a couple other guys, Jalen Merrick, some guys that we've been counting on are trying to get in that role the last couple of years to continue to come through. But they're just, believe me, if they were better than the option we had out there, they'd be out there. But our guys are working, striving. I think pass pro is an area that we can't get enough of in blitz pickup. So we'll keep stressing those areas. But unfortunately, there was a lot of youth in this team. Some guys that need to get reps, and they're getting reps, and they're getting better. If we were digressing or moving backwards, I'd be concerned. But I couldn't be more excited about where. I don't want to be a 1-2 team, but I'm excited about where we're going and what we showed. I think it would take a significant swing to get him to start. But if he has a good week of practice, we'll start our best 5. And it could be at left or right tackle. If he started at right tackle and Johnny Gibb would move inside, I don't see him beating out Johnny Gibson at right tackle, but it might be for lack of getting our best 5 on the field. He's in the mix to play.
Do you feel like the offensive line is behind where you thought it would be at this point?
Run game, no. I thought, we did a lot of, I know we wanted to outrush our opponent, but they blocked up the run pretty good. On some of those third longs, we got to keep ourselves in manageable situations. We got in those third and, 7 or more, and they started bringing a lot of pressure, and they can expose anybody. Frank, who's as good as there is, there's a play there where a guy gets underneath him and moves him, So, they got good players over there. Those 2 inside players for them, I think, are 2 of the better players we'll see in our league. And they got some matchup issues they want to take advantage of. But, again, the production, you'd hope when you score 43 points, you're going to be in a good position to win a game in the SEC. And we're right there knocking on the door, and we'll continue to right the ship, and I think play pretty good football.
In retrospect, you wish that maybe you guys had been a little more aggressive before the half on that last possession.
In the game?
Yeah.
No. Here's what you just had two scores against our defense in a short fashion. I thought our offense was playing well, but I didn't want to give up a big play or a big hit. I did not want to give the ball back to them with any significant time on it. If we had success on the first 2 plays, we were kind of looking at it differently, but just where we're at, we took the time down, took a shot on the 3rd down play. I knew they were going to get the ball back at that point in less than 15 seconds. I just didn't want them getting the ball back. If we had 3 incomplete passes, we give them the ball back in a minute. I didn't want to go down that road. They were feeling a little bit of mojo. I knew we were getting the ball in the second half. If it was the other way around, if we had not been getting the ball back, I might have thought differently, but not at all.
You got sacked a lot. I guess are you worried about if we hold the ball too long as a pass protection?
There's a little bit of both. We looked at what I always look at. Sack's a sack, but I just don't want him getting hit. And I believe he was on the ground 9 times, if I'm not mistaken, 8 or 9 times. And it was a little bit of everything. There was 2 or 3 that I think Austin held on to it, and he knows that. He owns it. Has to be able to get rid of the ball. There was a play where the running back went over and cut the guy and was more than sufficiently protected, and then he just hung on to it a little bit too long. There were 2 one positional group we just didn't strain, and there was a little bit of lost the edge on 2 different edge rushes that got a hit on him as the ball was being thrown, and then of course the sack. So O-line, tight end, running backs, as well as the quarterback, they all got to take ownership in it, and we don't want our quarterback in the SEC get knocked on the ground 8 or 9 times per game. He won't make it through it.
New Mexico State can be a better team than a lot of people think.
Absolutely, I think they're a 2-2 team that their coaches obviously grown through the coaching profession. They run the ball efficiently. They throw the ball. Their quarterback's a senior, seen a lot of good football. Running back is a good player who's got good speed. I think deceptive speed. He breaks tackles. Defensively, a group that plays very, very physical. I think our thing is we're playing here in our stadium. We want to make it an SEC-type game, SEC-type environment, and play the way that we're capable of playing. We can't control our opponent. We can control our own reactions. Is that our goal?
They beat Utah 41-14, which most people I think that'd be a kind of score Power 5 or whatever with a team like Utah. Does that help you get your guys' attention this week?
You know, I don't think we pay attention to score just as much as the film, and you know, they've had a couple. Obviously, they played their in-state rival. You know, they played UTEP, played Arizona State at the beginning of the year, so they played good football, played Power Fives. And again, like I said, good football team. It's not going. This is going to be their big game to come in here and play in this environment. We got to prepare very, very hard, and obviously learn our lessons of the past to make sure we're ready for Saturday.
Brett, looking back, is there anything that you do feel like you would have done differently after watching the film?
Well, as any game, win or lose, I think you're going to definitely take a self-inventory. As far as going for it on fourth down or you know, the field goal opportunity never really presented itself. There were pretty clear-cut decisions, so we went for it. There were several times during the course of the day, which I think helped us score and also advance past. There were a lot of times where we made decisions. Dan and I had gotten together and said once we crossed a certain yard line, we were going to go 4-down territory. So a lot of times on second down, I might say, hey, you have 4, which just meant you don't have to play for third down. You got 2 downs to play, which I think changed. Steamboat package, I thought was really, you know, with Cole was really not just the production of it, but it gave us energy. It gave him energy. It gave the guys energy. Wildcat package was good. Defensively, I'd say the big thing is we didn't give up. You know, we have a little formula where we work up a certain percentage of number of times that they lined up, number of times we get lined up correctly, and the number was very, very small, but they capitalized on big hits. You know, there was 4 plays that were mistakes on our behalf that resulted in scoring plays for them and ended up being a big part of the game. But you know, it was offense, defense, special teams. All 3 phases had a hand in our success, and all 3 had a hand in our failure. And I'm responsible for all 3, so it all goes on me. But I think the part that we have to do is understand there was a lot of things can get lost and that were positive, and if you ignore them, they may never come back. And there were so many positive things for what we did. I think our kids need to hear it. They definitely heard the negative side yesterday. Now as we move forward, I got to hear the positives.
Yeah, no, Lambert didn't get to try and field goals. I just think he did.
You know what? He hit the ball really well. I think he hit a 54 in pregame. Stroked the ball extremely well. You know, the kickoff coverage, a lot of it started with a kick, even though they weren't necessarily touchbacks. He placed the ball extremely well. That last kick, the second to last kick that went for a touchdown, obviously they put number 3 back in there. They'd kind of been going back and forth. He was in there, and then he was out of there. 16 was back there. We'd kind of been going back and forth between hashes. We did want to put that ball a little bit deeper than that last, we were trying to put it right over the first row, about to hit the SEC landmark, but he just got under it really well, and that guy caught it, and then we didn't do a great job of getting the guy down. But again, it was kind of the summation. Offense, defense, special teams did so many positive things, and then we'd have one play that would end up getting us. And in the SEC, that's something we got to live with. Or we understand that we can't live with.
On the kickoff cover team, you had 4 replacement guys in at that point.
Well, I don't know if I could. Yeah, but there were several, you know. So we have certain guys that start the game, and then you know, just based on reps. And again, when K. Rich didn't play, so for instance, Santos is a huge coverage guy for us. Josh Liddell is a big cover guy for us. Our linebackers, a couple of them are on the kickoff coverage unit. So there were some guys in there that were on at the end that weren't on the first couple. I don't know the exact number, but I would imagine 3 to 4.
Is Brian taking a step back a little bit? He did start all last year.
Brian.
Wallace, what is it
I don't know if he took a step back. He's obviously not starting, so that's a step, obviously not a step forward. I think we got better players. You know, obviously on the left side, Colton had a really good spring, played well. Yelder for Holt is playing at a better level than he's ever played at. Frank's where he's at, right guard. I think Ty Clary was a surprise factor, which moved Johnny Gibson. I think it got down to that point where we're better off Johnny Gibson being at right tackle with Ty Clary at guard, or Johnny Gibson being at right guard and Brian Wallace at right tackle. And coaches went, and I went with the decision to go with Johnny at tackle. He just seemed to be a little bit more consistent with what we're doing. Brian has been very, very positive. He's continued to work very hard. He was in my office yesterday, first thing, trying to not necessarily talking about offensive line play. He was talking about Diesel, you know, trying to be the block guy on the field goal thing. His attitude's been great. He's got to get better, you know. The same thing they said. We have a lot of that O-line group that's in their junior, senior class that we recruited 3-4 years ago that for us to take a step forward, those guys need to take a step forward, and it just hasn't happened.
What's your read from the guys in the sense of their belief in how they can turn it around? And then also, does it concern you at all, maybe apathy from the fans at all?
What's apathy?
Not caring.
The fans don't care.
Are you worried at all that might?
Oh, no, I think they've shown that they care a lot. I would felt that as a bad adjective. But I think the part that we sense from our players is that, again, they're disappointed. They were upset. But I think this one was more of an anger factor that they felt certain things happen. I know our defensive guys in particular are very frustrated, thought they had a third down stop, and it didn't end up being one. That turns, I think, to a bit of anger afterwards. We got to make sure it's channeled the right way and happen as we move forward. I think offensively, obviously, second to last play of the game, we have one that's an open touchdown and it ends up being out of bounds. So I think that turns to anger when you see it on film. As far as fans having angst, after the definition you gave that they don't care, I've seen the exact opposite. Not from what I've seen in Arkansas. I again, just been very overwhelmed at the positive things, the mail, the letter, the emails, people stopping you after the game on Saturday, walking out, the comments. I realize there's negative people out there. I don't hear from them or see them, but I think our players probably see it a little bit more than us, but I would think the exact opposite. I think they've demonstrated they care a lot, and I think that's a positive thing.
Hey, Brett, when you're talking about J-Red, you said they get a fullback who got hurt and they played in the NFL. So
Chris Presley.
Presley?
Presley, Pressley.
As far as the goal line, you feel a mental hurdles when you cross?
I hope so, Nate. I think two things. First, there was some different looks that you saw, obviously, that took place. With Cole being able to run the ball, throw the ball. As you saw at A&M, when he started coming in the game, they started bringing in 5 defensive linemen because they thought of the run game. But the good news about Cole, he's our second string quarterback and he knows our entire playbook. And he's our second string punter as well. So. I think the addition of bringing Cole into the game plan brings a lot of positive vibes to it, and it gets him game experience that he's getting without necessarily being a starting quarterback. I think that's a positive. And then just the second thing of our guys actually doing it, our guys actually feeling the success of scoring points and breaking through that road barrier. Now, believe me, I wanted to win that overtime. It's just so many things. The ball bounces in so many different ways, and you got to create the bounce. I get it, but we get our hand on that first ball. It bounces in the air off a shoulder pad. We got like 3 guys ready to grab that ball. It could have been the first play, could have been an interception. Gets them into second and long, gets them into third and long, and then all of a sudden we thought we're off the field on third down. We weren't. We had a flag that gave them first down. It just one of those things. Like every time we turn around, there's something hits us in the head, and at some point those are going to break free. I think that you got to be extremely strong in your faith and your unwavering idea to get better every day. If they just keep getting better, we'll have a chance, and then eventually it'll break through.
Did you get clarification from the SEC office about that?
No, what we usually do on Sundays is we grab plays from offense, defense, special teams, accumulate those, send them in the league office, and then we'll hear back from them sometime during the week. I'd say you usually send in anywhere 4 being small to 15 being a lot. I believe I sent in 10, 11 plays. Sometimes just for clarification. Again, that's a good crew. John, the head guy's a good man. I think there was a couple things that we just wanted clarity on so that we can move forward, because there were unfortunately there was a lot of flags that came on, or non-flags that came on critical drives, or scoring plays, and those are always difficult to deal with.
Did you feel like that last play, did you feel like Shine Brady was interfered with?
A lot of people had asked that one. I think there's a couple of them in this league. And we get handsy too. But again, those scoring or non-scoring plays were big parts of the game.
I'll ask you about the pass rush.
Yeah.
I know you probably wanted to rattle Mon or whatever, get him off his mark. How do you feel like that's progressing? Can you get better?
Yeah, I think without a doubt, the advantage of 3-4 is being able to bring guys from different positions. There was a couple nice plays, a couple I believe the first 2 sacks might have been coverage sacks, where they cover them up downfield, and Austin Cass fell into the one, had a lot of negative yard plays. Randy Ramsey actually played a pretty good game. He was coming off that edge a couple times in the run game, made some nice plays. I think the biggest thing that we got to do is, now this guy's a little bit different quarterback. This quarterback we're facing this week is different than the very first touchdown of the day was. We have a loop nose. Austin Cass is coming around the edge. He gets a little thick on the tackle. He can't quite break away, the way we'd like him to, but he was being restrained a little bit, and that allowed the quarterback to get outside. And then the quarterback gets outside, and it's a broken play, and a couple of our DBs reacted too quickly to the quarterback escaping, and obviously 3 got over top of us.
Brett, just
Last one.
be careful not to put you in a bad
Yeah.
position. But it looked like say your players are angered.
Uh-huh.
The passing interference call.
Um,
Jerseys were people had their hands in jerseys on the outside.
Yeah.
Receivers and corners, and that's the first time we called.
Yeah, I should clarify. I don't think our players are angry at officials. I mean, I can be angry, you can be angry, and yeah, I think anger is in more of the day itself. 3 out of 4 games in overtime and not being able to come out on top. Those are things that anger you. Obviously, it angers people that aren't on the field, that are on the field, that are watching at home or watching in the stands. So I think the thing that you can do, it's kind of like for me as a head coach, I mean, I get to do something every day I love doing. The players are doing the same thing. We want to win and we want to have success, but there's no greater moment than trying to overcome a difficult moment. I think our kids are trained that way. They enjoy the mentality of it. They don't enjoy the result of after the game, but now they're embracing the challenge and the fight that they got to have to get back on track. And I know they're very, very intent on doing that.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.